T-Pain, Young Jock.
You all had to know I was going to have to speak on this, right? As many know, and hopefully everyone knows, that the GOP healthcare plan vote was pulled again for the second day. After being pulled yesterday afternoon, it was also pulled today, whether it was by Trump or House Republicans in leadership in the House of Representatives. Some context to this whole process. The process for healthcare, for national healthcare or healthcare plan, actually started back in the Bill Clinton era. This was where Hillary Clinton actually tried to get a bill passed through her husband, Bill. It's pretty cool. But it ended up not working. We move ahead through George W. Bush. Obviously, 9/11 happened, and a few things that prevented any healthcare talks really went on to include a pretty significant crash of our economy. Now, what this means for the president. The GOP leadership, and notice I did not say Trump, the GOP leadership tried to do the same thing they were complaining about President Obama doing with the Affordable Care Act. They tried to push it through. Now, again, more context in that. Obama took about a year or two just to get the Affordable Care Act passed. Now, as I have posted many times, the Affordable Care Act is over 900 something pages. That's how laws work. So in working with Republicans and Democrats, certain concessions had to be made, which that law is way too deep to go into in a live video. That's more of a freaking forum. You could take a class on it, really. Took a couple of years and concessions were made, so on and so forth. Now, that's the year or two year long process. The Republicans were making last minute concessions to different people within their caucus, like the Freedom Caucus, which isn't really a super conservative group, but it's more towards the middle of the right, meaning that they're going to look out for their people. Now, anytime you have Republican governors speaking up, not just Democrats, Republican governors speaking up, Republican congressmen speaking up, Republican senators and Democratic senators saying this bill is dead on arrival, meaning even if they passed it through the House, it wasn't going to make it through the Senate. Now, without being too drawn out, even if they passed it, even if they were able to get the things promised or the concessions promised yesterday to the various factions in their caucus, the Republican caucus, they still had to get it in writing by today. You can't just vote on a bill saying we're going to do it and not have it in writing. Then that bill, if it was to be voted on and passed, it will have to go to the Senate. They would mark up the bill, and the Senate they move at glacier speed. They get it done when they get it done. That's just how. It's kind of like the House of Lords in England. When they do something, then it's done. The House can fight and stump their feet all they want. That's not how it's going to work. Senate has to eventually say this is how it's going to work. So after that, they would send it back to the Republicans in the House and say, this is our markup. Now you got to approve it. Then it gets sent back up and then to the president. So why am I saying the people have won? The Republicans' constituency spoke up. It's like, look, you talk about putting us coal miners back to work, but yet we won't have insurance. So you're about to send us back down there to get Black Lung 2.0, and we're not even covered. The wind down period would have been at least a year, at most maybe a year and a half, 2 years for the Affordable Care Act to actually go away. And then this new repeal or partial repealment to take place. Paul Ryan and the Republicans in the House have this defeat at their feet. Not really Donald Trump, because he wasn't really in it. He was basically saying, you guys work it out. So if someone, or if you see narratives blaming Trump or talking about he's not a deal maker or he wasn't able to make a deal with this healthcare issue, it's not really at his feet. It is at the Republicans' party's feet. They have the majority. But anytime you have a bill that was made in secrecy, like this one was, anytime you have a bill that didn't even have public hearings, that got rushed through committees to get to back to the floor to get voted on, you're going to have issues. So people for right now still have the affordable health or coverage on the Affordable Care Act. People still have pre-existing conditions getting treated, and this is a real thing. Many people have been on conservative stations as well as more liberal stations talk about, look, Obamacare is saving my life right now, or is saving a family member's life right now. So if you're going to repeal it and take it away, you got to replace it. And if you notice, over the past 6 years, actually closer to 7, I believe, repeal and replace, repeal and replace. They didn't have a plan. They showed this on the past couple of weeks. Not Trump, because he's a mouthpiece. He's saying what his people are saying. Oh yeah, we're replacing. This is what we campaigned on. These are all the narratives you're going to hear out there. We campaigned on it, and then they stopped us. The Republicans stopped the Republicans this time. They didn't have the right benefits. They had no replacement plan. So even after the wind down, the phases that the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary Price, I believe his name is, pardon my vernacular on this little piece, it's complete bullshit. You don't have phases. If you have phases, that means you have a plan. That means you put it into the bill, you send it to get marked up, you send it to the Senate, and it gets to the president's desk. But to say you have phases means you don't have a plan, which means it's not written down. That's the facts. And it's verifiable. If you actually read the proposed act, it was on Paul Ryan's site. It was on a couple other websites too, congress.gov. So what this means for the future, I know it's easy to complain, it's easy to be active, it's easy to resist when you're passionate or when something is pushing your buttons. This is the time right now that you need to set it up in your mind to stay active or stay engaged with your representatives and with your senators. Because just like this time, the people spoke up, the people pushed back, and they defeated a bill before it even got off the ground. Oh, one other note. If you are a mother that is in the middle class, single mother that's in the middle class or lower middle class, if you are a middle class or lower class family, this bill would have hit you right in the teeth. Because the tax credits and savings accounts that they're talking about, basically the bill would have made you have to go to the emergency room. One emergency visit or one ambulance ride can wreck somebody or the average middle class person's finances. Personal example, I had to go on a ride, and I was responsible, actually in the past couple of years, I was responsible for just under $1,000 just for the ambulance ride. The treatment fortunately was covered by the VA, but just for the ambulance ride, the meds that were pushed in the ambulance, that was on me. Think about it right now. Can you afford $800,000 right now if you had to spend it? And that's when the bills have to be paid or they start affecting your credit, so on and so forth. So just context, stay engaged, please. And I hope this video was informative and didn't come off as really partisan, because this is for the people. Right now, people won. Even though the system isn't perfect, it's still better off than having nothing. Also spoken.
Let's talk money. I talk